Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to MTG Traders. My name is Taryn, and this is Dimir Pirates for Rivals of Ixalan Standard. So we've done Izzet Pirates, we've done Rakdos Pirates, and we've even done Grixis Pirates, but we never actually went over a Dimir list for the Pirates, and I'm going to do that today, right now. But of course, before we get into it, make sure to like the video. If you like the video, it helps keep the content flowing and helps keep the channel growing. But without further ado, let's get right into it, guys. We have 4 of Siren Stormtamer. This is probably one of the best pirates in Rivals of Ixalan here for us, or from Ixalan rather. It is a 4 of 1 mana 1/1 Siren Pirate Wizard with flying, and we can pay 1, sacrifice it, counter target spell or ability that targets you or a creature you control. So again, one of the best advantages here of Siren Stormtamer is if we have another more powerful pirate on the battlefield and they have targeted removal, we can actually just sacrifice Stormtamer instead and make sure that our actual main board pirate that's important to us stays alive. Same thing for if they have a Settle the Wreckage, stuff like that. If they have anything that's targeting us, we can also Siren Stormtamer that as well. Overall, Stormtamer is going to be our turn 1 play. Just a fantastic card. It's even a flyer, so it can get in certain points of damage in the early game too. Next up here, we have 3 Direfleet Poisoner, another fantastic card from us from Rivals of Ixalan. A 3 of 2 mana 2/2 human pirate with Flash and Death Touch, and when it enters the battlefield, target attacking card you control gets +1/+1 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. So that's very important for us. This does mean that the Poisoner is going to come in on our turn more often than not. It's going to be a great way to trade with an opponent's creature, as well as maybe survive an opponent's trade if they decide to block one of our creatures as well. But of course, if Poisoner is the only card in our hand and an opponent is coming in with a large creature, we can play this out on their turn as well, since it does have Flash, and we can block that, making sure that it's dead as well, thanks to Poisoner having Death Touch too. Next up here for us, we have 4 Kitesail Freebooter, another all-star flying pirate for us in the Dimir list. This is a 4 of 2 mana 1/2 human pirate with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, reveal target opponent's hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it, exile that card until Kitesail Freebooter leaves the battlefield. So very, very good for us on turn 2. Very, very good for us against a control deck or a deck with a lot of heavy removal. Kitesail Freebooter is going to always be a 4 of inclusion in a Dimir Pirates list for me. Moving on here for some more tempo gain for us, we have 3 Warkite Marauder, a 2 mana 2/1 human pirate with flying. Again, a lot of flying pirates here, very good for us. Whenever Warkite Marauder attacks, target creature defending player controls loses all abilities and has base power and toughness 0/1 until end of turn. So if they have a flying 5/5 or if they have a big 5/5 on the ground, we can actually use Warkite Marauder either way to get through with flying damage over it. It's also a very good mix-up here for us as well, especially if it's a creature that we really want to die. They may just want to block that way, and we can kill it off, as it is just a 0/1. Another great upside here is that it does lose all of its abilities too, so if it's an indestructible creature like a Yahini or something like that, it does lose that as well, and that means that if we have anything in our hand like a Fatal Push and can trigger Revolt, we can definitely get that down and kill it without having to actually deal with the indestructible clause. Moving on here to some more value creatures at the 3 mana slot, we have 3 Ruin Raider, a 3 mana 3/2 Orc Pirate with Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attacked with a creature this turn, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. You lose life equal to that card's converted mana cost. So if it's a land, we don't lose any life, but if it is a creature or another spell, we can lose 2, 3, maybe even 4 life for that card. However, being on the curve for us, this is very, very good on turn 3, as it can help us trigger Raid and make sure that we actually get some card advantage off the top of it. So this could mean in the mid to late game, if we need to get into a Vraska's Contempt or a Fatal Push, we can definitely do that on our end step thanks to a card like Ruin Raider. It's definitely one of the few cards, or one of the few pirates in the deck, that is definitely going to be a removal magnet for us. And of course, you know I couldn't leave out this great pirate for us in the Dimir list. It is a 3 of Hostage Taker. This is a 4 mana 2/3 human pirate. When Hostage Taker enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature until Hostage Taker leaves the battlefield. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled. And you may spend mana as though it were any mana of any type to cast this spell. Again, Hostage Taker is one of the best creatures for us in actual standard right now. Hostage Taker is just a fantastic card for us, and lucky for us, it's a Dimir pirate too, so it's definitely going in this list. I almost put a 4 of here, but I think just putting in 3 is just fine. But that is all the creatures here. We only have 20 here. Let's go on to spells here, and we have quite a removal package. We have 4 Fatal Push, because you know this is the best black removal card in the format right now. 4 of 1 mana instant, destroy target creature if it has converted mana cost 2 or less, and of course Revolt, destroy the creature if it has converted mana cost 4 or less, instead if an opponent you controlled left the battlefield this turn. So Fatal Push is very good at being able to handle an opponent's early game, as well as kind of mid to late game, depending on what we have on our side of the field. Next up here for us, we have 3 Chart a Course. Because we're going to be attacking on every single turn, Chart a Course is great because it's basically 2 mana draw 2 card, which is awesome. So it's 2 mana draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless you attack the creature this turn. So as long as we're attacking, just like we have with Ruin Raider on the battlefield, it triggers raid, making sure we don't discard a card. Chart a Course, along with Ruin Raider, is just very, very good at being able to kind of instill card advantage back into our hand. Next up here, we have 3 Siren's Ruse. This card is fantastic for a Pirates list here. It's a 3 of 2 mana instant, exile target creature you control, then return that creature to the battlefield under its owner's control. If a pirate was exiled this way, draw a card. So if we have a Hostage Taker, we want to take something else, or if we have a Kitesail Freebooter, we want to take something else as well, or if we have target removal towards a Ruin Raider or Hostage Taker, we can just flicker them, make sure that they do not resolve, and actually draw a card off of that as well for 2 mana. That's very good. I do think this card kind of gets overlooked a little bit in the standard deck building format for the Pirates lists, but I think here in a Dimir list, this card is amazing, especially with all the raid triggers and near the battlefield triggers we have on our creatures. Moving up here for some straight up control though, we have 3 Lookouts Dispersal, a 3 of 3 mana instant. Lookouts Dispersal costs 1 colorless less to cast if you control a pirate, and of course counter target spell unless its controller pays 4 colorless mana. That is a lot of mana to pay. An opponent most likely will not have that in the early games of the match. And of course if we control a pirate, it's just a 2 mana counter target spell unless its controller pays 4 colorless, which is very, very good for us. Supreme Will is very good in control decks, but Lookouts Dispersal is very good in a pirate deck because it does the same thing, but it also is just 2 mana for us because we control pirates. And the last cards in here for us for extra removal is 3 of Vraska's Contempt, probably one of the best removal pieces for us as well in the format. It's probably one of the most expensive pieces in the actual deck here. It is a 3 of 4 mana instant, exile target creature or planeswalker, you gain 2 life. That 2 life gain is actually kind of important for us, especially against a round up red strategy, or rather a has red or mono red aggro strategy. Vraska's Contempt is very, very fast, and of course it's at instant speed, so it can be on our opponent's turn or on our turn, and just does a really good job of being able to get rid of cards that go to the graveyard and still have a problem getting back into our opponent's hand. Cards like the Scarab God, of course God-Fear's Gift is annoyance, so if they bring anything back from that, or if we have something on the battlefield that they want to go to the graveyard, Vraska's Contempt can deal with that for sure. But that is all the cards in the deck besides lands. Let's go to lands real quick. We have 4 Drowned Catacombs. This is a buddy land coming in tapped unless we control an island or a swamp for us. We also have 4 Fated Pools. This is a land, island, swamp, so it's actually very, very good at being able to come in tapped on turn 1, making sure we have a untapped Drowned Catacombs on turn 2. So we actually have double blue mana or double black mana thanks to this kind of interaction here. But if we don't need the card at all, since it does come in tapped, we can just use it for 2 mana to cycle it away to actually gain some more card advantage off of that as well. Next up we have 2 Field of Ruin because flipped Legion's Landings into Adanto or flipped as Kanta is very, very hard to deal with. Legion's Landing is here to help deal with that. We can tap it for colorless mana, or we can pay 2 and sacrifice it. Destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player searches his or her library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle his or her library. Keep in mind that comes in untapped, and that also goes for us as well. So that's very, very good, especially if we're kind of needing an extra blue or an extra black piece of mana. And moving on to the basics, we have an even split of 7 island and 7 swamp, and that is 24 lands in total, and that is the full 60. Of course, game 1 game plan, this is more of a tempo-based strategy, so getting out Storm Tamer, getting out the Kitesail Freebooter, making sure we can kind of get some hand hate against our opponent, getting a Ruin Raider out for some card advantage, locking down their creatures with a Hostage Taker, and just getting out with either a Poisoner or a Ruin Raider for the kill. And of course, we have lots of flying creatures in the main board here, so we can get lots of flying damage against our opponent too. But what can we do in the game 2 against, say, let's say Control, let's say Approach, let's say another aggro strategy? Let's go to the game 2 sideboard game plan. First up here, we have 3 Duress, great card for us. A 1 mana sorcery, target opponent reveals his or her hand, you choose a non-creature non-land card from it, that player discards that card. So very good on turn 1 in game 2 against a aggro or a heavy removal opponent, especially a control opponent, because they're going to have a lot of like turn 2 counters for us. If we get to play first, we have a turn 1 black mana Duress. It's going to be amazing against our opponent, and our opponent is going to be oh so salty. Next up here, we have 1 Spell Pierce, just a 1 of, very good against a very heavy tempo opponent or another control opponent. Very good at being able to shut those kind of strategies down. So 1 mana instant, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2 colorless. So a turn 1 or turn 2 Fatal Push can kind of hurt us a little bit, so a Spell Pierce is here just to represent that. Next up here we have Crook of Condemnation. This is kind of in here just as a joke now. I was going to put in the Scavenger Grounds here, but I do think Crook is very good as well. This is just kind of an inside joke in the community for me now. I love Crook of Condemnation. I'm going to put it in the sideboard. It's a 2/2 colorless artifact. We can pay one and tap it, exile target card from a graveyard, so very good against God-Fear's Gift, very good at being able to get rid of eternalized creatures or embalmed creatures, or very good at getting rid of a Scarab God if they decide to attack him with that, and we get to be able to block with that. But we can also pay one and exile Crook of Condemnation, exile all cards from all graveyards as well, so very good at being able to just clear out a graveyard completely too. The reason I prefer Crook over Scavenger Grounds at the moment is because of the Field of Ruin cards that are kind of in the sideboard or main board now for a lot of decks. I do think a Braid can deal with a Crook of Condemnation really quickly though as well, but either way, I do think Crook is very good in the second game of a sideboard plan. Moving on here, we have 3 Essence Scatter. Because there are so many creature-based decks in the format right now, Essence Scatter is here to help deal with that. Very good at being able to shut those creatures down. Of course, it's a 2-mana instant, counter targets creature spell, so just very straightforward, very good at being able to just shut down creatures. And if they decide to cast a Scarab God, we can just Essence Scatter it, and it doesn't return to their hand because it didn't go from the battlefield to the graveyard. It went from their hand to the graveyard, so very good at that. Next up here, we have 3 Moment of Craving. Again, lots of creatures in the format, and this is also very good at being able to combat against mono-red aggro as well. A 2-mana instant, target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn, you gain 2 life. So the -2 is actually very good at being able to deal with an indestructible creature if our opponent does decide to use cards like Sheltering Light, things like that. But also a very good thing for us is gaining 2 life too, because it's very good against a mono-red aggro deck, very good against another aggro or aggressive deck that we really need life to kind of make sure that the actual match can go on long enough to where we can kind of get the win on our side. Moving up to some more control magic here for us, we have 2 Negate, again against a more heavy removal opponent or control opponent. Negate's going to be coming in for that. A 2-mana instant to counter target non-creature spell. And the last card in the sideboard here to help deal with Approach, we have 1 Commit to Memory. A 4-mana instant, put target spell or non-land permanent into an owner's library, second from the top. And of course, we have Memory here for 6. We can Aftermath it, which is we can cast it from the graveyard, and each player shuffles his or her hand and graveyard into his or her library, then draws 7 cards. So very good at hopefully being able to get rid of an Approach from an opponent's either graveyard or hand, kind of shuffling it away to make sure they don't actually draw into it very quickly. Of course, if you're into more of the Lost Legacy route of dealing with Approach, I think that might be the better route to take. Commit to Memory, though, is quite good at being able to slow the strategy down too, though. But that is the full 75, folks. On MTG Traders, it's coming to about 47 tickets, which isn't too bad, and on paper, it's coming to about 177 bucks, which again is not too expensive. It's kind of on the upper echelon here, but not crazy. Of course, the most expensive cards in the deck are Vraska's Contempt. We have Fetid Pools there being almost 10 tickets for 4 of them, and Hostage Taker being a few bucks as well. Of course, game 1 game plan, we get up Siren, Storm Taper, get out the Poisoner if we need to, Kitesail Freebooter for some hand hate, or Kite Marauder to shut down some creatures we don't like, and Rune Raider for some card advantage, and of course, Hostage Taker to take their best creature. Using cards like Fetid Pools, Vraska's Contempt, and Siren's Ruse to hopefully kind of mitigate the damage that our opponent's doing to us, and use Lookout's Dispersal and Charter Course for card advantage, as well as some straight countering. And our game 2 game plan with the sideboard is actually quite flexible, being able to deal with control, aggro, and a little bit of mid-range matches with cards like Negate, Moment of Craving, and of course, Crook of Condemnation for that graveyard hate. But that is the full 75, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you have any suggestions for it? Leave them in the comments below. Would love to hear what you guys have to say. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. There's more stuff to come as well. And of course, streaming on the channel as well. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.